RV America the Beautiful, where this week we're off to Kinsua Dam and the Allegheny National Forest. It's situated in northwestern Pennsylvania, and we're going to be visiting the Red Bridge campgrounds. So come along and join us, and we'll show you around. Here we are looking at the eastern half of the United States, and you'll find Allegheny National Forest at the western end of Pennsylvania. It's a pretty good sized national forest, as you can see. And the Allegheny Reservoir is situated at the north end of the forest. The campgrounds that we'll be talking about are along the Allegheny River entrance to the reservoir. The dam is located about here on the outflow of the reservoir. And this reservoir goes all the way back up across the New York state line. It's got great boating, fishing, and kayaking. It's a wonderful place to spend the weekend. And it's quite secluded. We do not get AT&T cell service there, but you do get Verizon cell service there. So as we zoom in, this is State Route 59, and you will be coming down State Route 321, and the entrance to Red Bridge is right here. I do want to touch on a couple other campgrounds. There's a nice campground up here called Dewdrop, and there's another nice campground right here called Kayasutha. Right about here, it becomes no wake zone, so this is a great place for kayaking and paddleboarding and just enjoying the shoreline without boat wake. If you look at the satellite map, you'll see that it is quite heavily forested, and that's one of the things that's enjoyable about this campground is you get quite a bit of privacy between the campsites. So let's take you on a drive and show you around. We're going to talk a little bit about the area and the history, and we're going to show you around a bit in the rest of the video. The reservoir itself is about 25 miles long. It's surrounded by the Allegheny National Forest, and that is comprised of 500,000 plus acres of national forest. So it's a beautiful area, not developed. There's just a couple of marinas on the lake. I think one up at the north end of the lake in New York, and one here by the Kinsua Dam and Bridge called Wolf Run. I used to come back here in the 1980s when I had a boat, and I'd come here with a number of other couples with 4 boats, water skis, ski bobs, parasail, and we'd load up the boats with all our camping gear and boat off to some remote campsites around the lake where they're boat access only or hike-in only. We'd throw all our gear up at the campsite, set up, and do nothing but boat and ski and have a good time all weekend long. So I found memories of camping here when I was in my 20s, and we're still coming back today. We love the area. It's a beautiful place to camp, and hopefully we'll be able to show you around a bit.
Yeah. So a little bit of history beyond what Brian already has mentioned. 200 years ago, this area was inhabited by the Seneca Indian tribes, but they were driven out by the European settlers in the sort of the early 1800s. And when the Indian tribes were driven out, European settlers began taking timber down. Gradually, as they hunted this area, the white-tailed deer population was pretty much decimated, which means that the wolves, the bears, and the cougars that were also here at that time left, you know. So the landscape began to change radically very quickly. By 1840, the native timbers of this area were, as I said, fairly decimated. Those were beech and hemlock mostly. This was an eastern hemlock paradise. Hemlocks love cool, dense canopy, you know, lots of rain, rocky areas, and that's exactly what this is. Those hemlocks were not only taken down for their timber value, but excuse us, it's the mosquito season, for their timber value, but they were used, the bark itself was used in leather tanning processes. So there was a tanning industry that was built up. Many timber mills were created. So there was a lot going on here. And by, you know, once the timber mills and the tanneries started becoming big as an industry, then the railroad was built and that was brought in. Coal mining began to fuel these industries, and the area became civilized. In 1923, the federal government bought this land, which was almost completely barren of the, you know, grandfather forest that had been here, although there were pockets of grandfather forest that were still left. But the locals who lived here called it the Allegheny brush patch because it looked like you'd expect. It was just devastated. And there was nothing but stumps and brushy patches and weeds and etc. So once the federal government started managing the land, then they allowed the trees that were here to grow, the native trees that were here to grow. And so an entirely new population of forest, you know, sprung up. And most of the trees that are here now are all about the same age, between 70 and 100 years old. And so it's a forest, it's a second growth forest mostly, but it's very pristine. It's 99.9% of it is all native plants, and trees and shrubs and mosses and ferns. And so those native plants are rare to find because usually, you know, we all live in suburbia. You just don't find some of these beautiful shade tolerant, wet tolerant, rocky areas that grow these just gorgeous trees and flowers and ferns. So it's very green here. It's a high, I don't know what the rainfall is, but it's like a northern rainforest. It's really wet here. We joke every time we come here, it's raining.
Yeah.
But we don't mind that because that's what keeps it so green and pristine. So, so today, pockets of the original grandfather forest, you know, have been allowed to survive and kept pristine. And so the area has been repopulated with beautiful plants, and the Forest Service has, you know, also developed, in 1965 they began developing the campground here. And so you've got campsites that are hard packed. They're leveled in some cases. They're hard packed. You can get big rigs and small rigs in here. There's some tent sites. There are some that are only tent sites. They're dedicated. This campsite is right on the water. So you walk, there's a path right over my right shoulder down to the water, which is, we pay extra to be on the water. Although we don't have any electricity or water available on the site.
This is a premium site. You pay a little bit extra. There are sites that are fully developed with all the utilities that are up the hill, but the sites that are right on the lake tend to be the primitive sites, which as Shay said, they're all pretty nice. All of them are level enough to get your rig leveled. Probably none of them are perfectly level, but they're pretty good.
They all come with a picnic table and a fire pit, and you can buy wood here. They really frown on you bringing any wood into this forest. If you're not already aware, there's pests that come along with bringing wood from other areas, most notably the emerald ash borer, which has, across the eastern U.S., really
devastated the
devastated
ash population.
the native ash tree population. It's very rare to find a large ash anywhere anymore. Regardless, they started, they've done a really good job with these campgrounds. There's a lot of greenery in between the campgrounds and across the street from the campgrounds, so you can find a campsite like this one where you're completely surrounded on 4 sides by greenery, and you never have to see your neighbors if you don't want to. And we walk right down that path, and we take the dogs down the lake, and when it's really hot, you just jump right in the water with them. The lake is clean.
Zeke.
It smells like lake water. It doesn't have any other funky,
Zeke.
residues in it, or, boating oils or any of that kind of
We
stuff.
hit the button.
At this end of the lake, we're at the southern end of the reservoir. This particular campground, the water down here there's no boats, so it's a no wake zone. So you'll typically not see the motorboats and all the crazed activities that go along with that.
That's a good kayaking area
yeah,
because
they
of the
remain-
no wake zone.
Yeah, so we like coming down to this end of the lake because it's much quieter. Right across from where our campsite is, across the lake, there's an osprey nest that produced young this year. And in addition to which, our neighbor told us he saw a bald eagle yesterday. So this morning when we woke up, I heard the osprey calling. And that's just a,
Great noise to wake up to. Great sound to wake up to.
Yeah, the last time I heard an osprey calling was when we were in the Rocky Mountains. So it's really cool to see the ospreys coming back to this area. But we love it here. We wanted to share it with you because we live about 30 miles east of Cleveland, and we live out in the country, as you know. But this is really, really a special area, and we've talked to so many of the people over the years that we've been coming here who also have been coming here for decades, and they all say the same thing. It's a special place, and they really want to keep it special, so everybody's very respectful. And there's lots of family activities. We had a street hockey exhibition going on right down the way last night. There's nothing better than to sit by a campfire and listen to a bunch of kids playing in this kind of environment. It's just a beautiful thing. So we love it here. We hope you do too.
All right. Let's pan around and show you a little bit about the campsite.
Hey. Come on, bub. Attaboy. You're a good boy. You're a good boy. Yeah, come here. Good boy.
Zeke's going for the far shore, it looks like. No?
Yeah.
Roxy. Everybody is out.
Doesn't get much better than this.
Curious to see whether those kayakers on the far shore are going to try that rope swing.
So this area is incredibly lush with a heavy understory of ferns and native wildflowers and beautiful mosses and lichens. It is very similar to a rainforest in that it gets quite a bit of rain every year, and the native flora is really well adapted to the acidic soil from all of the leaves decaying every year. So you have ferns, as I said before, and mosses and lichens that are unusual and particular to this region.
Here we are making hobo pies, a tradition when we come out to Kinswood Dam area.
This one is an apple filling hobo pie with white bread. Turn it over. It should be just about done. And we just use regular apple pie filling. A little bit of butter on there. You're good to go.